Yes, hello people. Time to install the electronics in the team associated B74.2. I got this Hobbywing Quick Run 3650 3.5 turn, 10.5 turn. It's a sensored brush motor, and also the Quick Run 10 BL 120, also sensored ESC. This is what I would call budget electronics, but they are maybe good enough. But as I said before, just I have to note that this ESC don't have what they call blinky mode. That's when you set the ESC in a special mode, so it flash light, and that tells that you have zero timing on the ESC. And in some competition that is required. So if you're driving in competitions where that is required, I don't think you can use this ESC. But otherwise, it's okay maybe. And then I got the Servo Savox SB2265 MG. This is like a smaller size servo. And the spec for this servo, let's see where I had this. Maybe I lied away, but it's about 12 kilo on 7.4 volt. So it's a bit less on 6.0, and this ESC can only deliver 6.0 volt. The speed on 7.4 volt is 0.08 seconds, I believe, so that would also be some slower on 6 volt then. But I will see if that's not good enough for me. I'm not the most experienced and best driver, so I probably will have no issue with this servo speed as long as it's strong enough. I also bought some Yeehy Racing plugs, contact plugs that I would solder onto the lines to the battery. These two, red and black, and this is just a sensor cable between the ESC and the motor, and I have this 25-tooth aluminium horn that I will try to use. With the car it comes with some plastic horns. Here they are. You have both 23 and 25 tooth plastic horns in 18.5 and 20 millimeters. I read somewhere that you use the 20 millimeter servo horn, but I'm not sure. I have to see what they use. But this servo horn here, I just have to take off one side, and then I have to find out which hole I want to use and drill it open so I can use a 3 millimeter screw. Then I also have a pinion, and for this motor 10.5 turn, I think a 24 tooth pinion should be okay. I plan to use zero timing on the ESC. Maybe I can go up a bit on the timing if I want more speed if I need it. Also have a receiver, Spectrum SR315. It's a 3-channel, but it's got also a spot there where you can plug in batteries. So you have 4 contacts there, and I use one for the ESC, one for the steering, then I use one for the motor fan. I have a fan for the motor here, and then I use one slot for this Milapse RC4 transponder. This is what you use on the car to get lapse time, and also used in competition. So you can see, also good for training, because you know if you're driving slow or faster, and if things you do, if it's giving you more speed or less speed. And of course we have to have some wheels. So this is for 4-wheel drive buggy, and also battery, of course. Good to have the battery just so I know how the cables should be routed. This is the first 10 scale buggy I install electronics in, and I'm gonna just use some pictures from the internet. If you just Google Team Associate the B74.1 setup, you will come to this site that's called petitrc.com, and you will find some pictures that people have posted with their electronic setups. So you can see here that they usually have the ESC here on there, because that's also where you have the ESC mount plate, and you have the servo here, and I usually put the receiver here. Then you have the engine here, and here you have the fan on the rear, but I have the fan here on the top now, as you can see here. But I think that should be okay. You have to see, and then you just have to cut the cables and solder onto the engine. You solder directly to the engine here, and then you also have to cables here with the, like I said, I'm using these ER racing contacts onto the battery. Also make sure that you have the right contacts, because these batteries come with either 4mm or 5mm hose. This is 4mm. But this ER racing, they come with both 4 and 5, and you can just unscrew the plug, or what they call it. So you can use these with both. So it's quite easy to change between 4 and 5. But also look here on the picture, because you see here that there's the plus, there's the minus. So you should always put the battery in the same way. And I know some people, they cut the cable so they cannot put the wrong cable into the wrong side. But then again, also note that some of these batteries come with plus on this side and minus on that side. Other comes with the opposite, with minus on that side and plus on that side. And some batteries you can just turn over. They have the holes that go directly through the batteries. So you can change easy the direction then. But then for not all batteries, so you just make sure that you have the right battery that fits your setup, especially if you cut the cables. So you cannot take the cables from one side to the other. Also note that they plug into the battery here on this side, so you're not on that rear side here. Maybe to keep the cables as short as possible. Yes. So I come back when I start to mount some of the electronics. I think we're going to start with the servo first. And then we have to get in the receiver we have to see, and we have to get in the engine, and then we have to see where we can place the ESC and start to cut the cables and mount the ESC, and then start to solder on the cables there. I'll come back later. Bye bye. I found another servo horn I use. I've not used any thread lock glue on the screws yet, just for the mount to the servo, not to the mount to the chassis, so I can move things a bit. I just have to test to see if things fits. And you have the servo arm here that's up to spec with the length to tell you how long this should be. So I mounted everything now. You can see here on this Ackerman plate, I think they call it, you have this pyramid or triangular. And that should be in the middle here, I guess. I can't see it says anything about that, but I guess that's right. So now that's in the center, and then you just take this servo arm and see if it fits all right with the mounts there. And it fits okay. And a small adjustment is okay. You can always fix the center position using the transmitter, correct it a bit. But you just have to check when you get the steering all the way to one side. You see now you have to check that the servo is moving all the way there, and it's not hitting something, like the link here is not hitting into the servo or something. And then you go all the way to the opposite and just test again and see here. I see when I'm going extreme to this side, the link end almost hits the servo here. But I'm never gonna have this steering all the way this, because now it's all the way to this left side, or what is it? So if I move it just a bit the other way, so it's not on the extreme side, I see I can take the servo horn a bit more up, and then we will not have any issue with the link ball end or something hitting into the servo mounter. So all looks good. So I think I now can take and use thread lock on. It's only 2 screws to mount the servo. Maybe this screw here. Let's see, it was now these 2 screws are for the servo mount. So you use some thread lock on these screws. And I also gonna use thread lock on the screws on the servo, I believe. So I think I can fix, if it's a bit off mid position, I can fix it. But you should really connect the servo also to the receiver and get some power into it to see where the servo is positioning for the mid position. So all right, but if it's way off, I think I could always just take off the servo horn again and reposition the servo horn. So come back later. I now mounted the motor mount to the motor. You can see the position here. You have the connection tabs here on this side here. That's also what they say in the user manual. Align the motor solder tabs to the side as shown here. So when you slide this into here, you can see you get the solder tabs here on this side. And you have the ESC here, and then you have the cables straight over there. But now I have to fit the pinion. Where's the pinion? Here's the pinion. So now I will try to fit the pinion here and see that it's positioned in the middle of the spur gear. And when I have that in the right place, I can set up the mesh. That's the distance between the spur gear here and the pinion. It should not be too tight. You should have a very little play. Some people say you can take a sheet of paper and lie it between the spur gear and the pinion. That's the play you should have. But you hear it when you hold on the pinion and move the spur. You hear this little click, 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 click sound, like that. So a very little play. But okay, I keep working. Yeah, I guess why they wanted to have the solder tabs on this side is also because you have the sensor connector here. So you have to have the sensor cable, that this one, that goes into the motor through the ESC. And I've seen many people place the sensor cable here on the bottom, here, straight to the ESC. So now I have used the thread lock on the pinion now. So it's seated here on the middle of the spur gear. And now you just have to slide this to get to this sweet spot. You can hear this sound. Can you hear it? This tick, 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 tick. That tells you have a little play here. That's good. That's what you should have. It should not be tight like this, that the motor is totally into. You have no play at all. You should have this little small play. Just check that and rotate the spur a bit and check again. Because sometimes you have a little spur gear, maybe it's not perfect round like a circle, so you have to check around all the positions. But that's quite easy to find here, I believe. And then you just use thread lock on these 2 screws, and you have one on this side and one here. And you mount the motor so it's stuck in this position. Maybe it's good to put in the sensor cable before you mount it I'm not sure, but I think I'm gonna use that. And I do that so it's not hard to get the sensor cable into there. And I'm gonna solder the motor in this position, because you have to find the right length. Okay, come back when I'm going next step. Well, I'm still installing the electronics. I now have the ESC here and this capacitor, or what it's called, on this side with the double-sided tape, and this the on and off switches here. This ESC don't have integrated on and off switch, so you have this external switch, and then the sensor cable are routed here, you can see, and I just drilled a small hole in the guard here to just use a strip there to hold on to the sensor cable, and the sensor cable go into the engine there. And now I will just take this cables here and solder onto the engine like this, one there, and one there. And then I have the battery connectors, so I will solder these connectors too, but I have to measure how long I want to. And I guess I'm gonna route these cables under the fan here, really, and use a strip here, or just by the side here maybe, and use a strip here on the fan, because you have holes in the fan that are not used, so I can put a strip through here, and so these cables hold on to this, so they are not there moving to the spur gear or something. And then I just have to measure how long this should be here, so I can connect them. And the last thing I have to do is to find a place to the receiver, probably here somewhere. And then I have to take the cables from the fan, from the servo and the ESC. And also I have to find a place for the transponder. And the transponder I could maybe have fit here, and that would be a good place, because you don't have any metal under it. They say if you have metal under the transponder, it can give some weaker signal. So if I find place to it here, that's maybe okay. So that's all. I come back later. Still working with electronics. Now we have the ESC mounted, and the power on switch, and the capacitor, and we have some, we have soldered here to the motor engine, and we got these wires there that we want to connect to the battery. And I have this I'm not sure what it's called. Let's see, ER Racing Angel type WPT 0121, both 4 and 5 millimeters, and this is 4 millimeters. So now I just have to measure how big space I need. It's very tight there, I feel, but I can contact it before I put the battery down. And I have to measure how long the wire should be. So this one could be quite short, I see, and this one have to be some longer than. So I just cut and solder on 2 of these. The last thing is to get in the receiver, probably here somewhere, and get all the wires into the receiver. And then the very last thing would be the transponder. Come back. Well, now we got I'm finished with soldering. So now the ESC is soldered to the motor, and I have soldered onto this engine contact. So now I have the plus there and the minus there, and I cannot do wrong because I don't reach but to the minus here. So that should be okay. And I got the receiver just here, and I put into the throttle, ESC, and the steering, the servo, and also the motor fan. The only thing missing here is the transponder, but that's not important. So now I'm just going to start up the electronics first time and see if things works. I also have to bind this receiver to my transmitter, and I really also have to calibrate the ESC with the transmitter, but that's maybe gonna do later if it's not absolutely necessary now. So let's see if we can start it up. Alright, just checking that we not have any cables, wires that are not correct there. That looks good, that looks good, that looks good. A, B, C, A, B, C, A, B, C, yes. Okay, and the power switch is now off, I believe. Yes, it should be, so we can connect the battery. That was the plus, and this is the minus. So now I'm just going to turn on and see if the fans are working and blowing the right direction. And I hope it's not going to do anything else really. Funny enough, the motor fan is blowing into my face, so that I have to just turn around. Not a big issue. I'm just checking that the fans are blowing the right direction. ESC fan is okay. Okay, so we have power. Just have to turn this fan. Now I just have to calibrate the receiver here. But first maybe I have to make another. Let me see, what do we have our model select. I have to add a new one. Okay, this is going to take some time because I have to give it a name also. So I think it's okay. Okay, now we have to bind this receiver to the transmitter. So let's go into the menu here for binding and just be ready. And when I turn on the car, I have to hold on this switch on the receiver like that, and just hit bind here, and they are binded. Yep, we have now binded. I can turn off the car again, turn it on again. Yes, we also have steering, and we have throttle, and it goes in the right direction. So it looks good. Only the motor fan that are blowing me in my face, blowing the wrong direction. And how is the steering? It's not bad, really. You can also maybe see here that the arrow here is almost perfect. I can just give it a bit like that. I'm just giving a bit calibration on the steering here. So now it should be really spot on. I can set down the steering end points because they are a bit too high now. As you see, we set it first down to 50 just as a start. So 50 here. You see. I think the servo is fast enough. It feels okay. I think I can set down the travel even more. All good. Really. Yes, I have to calibrate the ESC. Let's see if I can get that right. I guess it's the same procedure as before. So you just hold in this set when you are starting it up, and then when it starts to flash you drop it. Let's see. Okay, it's blinking. Then hit it one time. Then full maximum throttle, maximum reverse. Yes. I think that's okay. Calibration of the ESC is alright, because when I hit maximum throttle I see it switch to green light. Okay, I'm done today, but I'm not completely finished here. But it's getting late now, so I think I'm just gonna stop for today. Okay, the things I have to do: I have to turn around the engine fan so it's blowing the right direction. I also have to use double-sided tape and mount this receiver, and I have to find space for the transponder. I think I can get the receiver about here. Then I also have to put the antenna somewhere so that it's standing somewhere, and the transponder is maybe going here then. So there should be enough space, and the steering looked very nice. Yes, so I come back tomorrow when I finish this car, and then we also get to put on wheels and body. See that it goes on over this. It's quite little space now, but I think it should go good. Yes, come back tomorrow. Bye. Now I mounted most of the electronics there, and have the wires okay. Maybe not the best fit, but okay. It would be better if you could just cut off the wires some, and but then you have to make the contact again. But it's okay, and as you can see, the on-off switch is here, ESC here, the receiver is here, just using double-sided tape to hold all this on the chassis here, and the transponder is this red one under here. Now I'm gonna start to program the ESC. And this is the Hobbywing Quick Run 10 BL 120. So let's see, this is the program items we have. And I had to use this Hobbywing program card, and that's a cheap item you can get, and you just take the wire for the ESC and plug it into this program card box. I tried to use the multifunction LCD program box, but that didn't seem to work with this kind of ESC. It just said, please upgrade the software. But I also tried to connect it to my computer to see if I really could upgrade the firmware software on this ESC, but I didn't find anything for that. So I guess you have to use the program card. And you can also use just the set button here with the on-off switch. So if you don't have this program card, you can use that to program the ESC if you want. But let's start it up. And now it's just looking for the items. And the first setting is running mode, and it's on default on forward reverse brake. And that's where I want to use it. In competitions you maybe just have allowed to have a forward brake. That's option 1. But I'm just going to keep it here, because when you practice, sometimes the car hit up to a wall or something. And if you're on the pilot stand, you don't want to walk down to the track every small time something like that happen. So it's good to have a bit of reverse just to back off and keep driving them. But again, in competition you maybe have to switch that to option 1. That's forward brake. Item 2 is drag brake, and I started to using some drag brake. Mr. Bruno, the pro driver, says that when you are coming into a sharp corner and going down on speed, the drag brake will give you a bit sharper turn. And when I was testing the B74.2 two-wheel drive car, I ended up using drag brake 8 on that, 8%. And that felt good for me. I almost didn't have to use the brakes at all. So I'm gonna set this to 5 now, drag brake 5. And that's item option 2. So we change that to 2 and we press OK. Now that should be saved. And then you have the love. I'm not sure why I'm having a problem to say high and low. I almost say like love, you know. But okay, low voltage cutoff. Default is 3.0 volt for each cell. That's way too low. I'm not sure why they have it that low. So I'm gonna rise it to option 5. That's 3.2 volt each cell. You should really have, there should be option have 3.3 would be better. 3.4 is maybe a bit high, but some people would say that's alright to have that also. I'm just gonna try 3.2. So now for item number 3, we change to option 5 then. Let's see, option 5, and OK, stored. Then you have the start mode punch. Here I don't, not sure what I want really, but you have to test that. But usually you don't want very high punch, because then the car will spin a lot and you lose the steering. But since it's 4-wheel drive, okay, you can have a bit more punch maybe, and also on carpet you can have a bit more punch. But still, from my experience, I'm used to not having that high punch. So I'm gonna start quite easy here. I'm gonna set it down to option 3, that's level 3. So start mode, so that's item number 4. Default is 7. but we're gonna set it to 3. 1, 2, 3. Okay. So we're gonna test there, and if that's a bit too little, I'm gonna raise it up to 4 or 5 and try. I just have to test that, as I said. Then you have the max drag brake force, but that's option 5. But if you read here, it doesn't have to do anything with drag brake, as I can see it. They just say it's the brake force, and that's okay to have on 75, but that's maybe too high. But what you do is you just set it to 75 and you turn it down in the transmitter here. You just adjust the reverse travel really, and that I usually put down to around 50. That's more easy, and then you can just adjust it in your transmitter. You don't have to reset it in the ESC. So why not using 100%? Well, 75 is high enough, so I believe, but I will test it. If it's too weak, I will raise it to 100% and then adjust it in the transmitter as I want it. But we're gonna start with 75, and then I'm gonna adjust it in the transmitter when I'm on the track and testing the car. So that's option item 5, and that value 3 is okay. Then we go to the next. Max reverse force, that's just the speed in the reverse, and that can be 25. Also, when you set down the reverse travel in the transmitter, the car will go even slower, because I will set that to 50% because of the brakes. Initial brake force, that's item 7. Here we have that it says it's 0%, but I want it initial brake force. That's when you release the throttle and you are in the neutral, or when you give a little bit of brakes, the very first small amount of brakes. But I want that to be equals drag brake force here, so you get the smooth transmission from neutral to the brakes. So that's option 1. So we have to change that to the, like that. Throttle range is okay, it's 9%. That's just the neutral range, I guess. And the timing, I'm gonna keep this car on timing 0. But if I think the top speed is a bit too little, you can start to test to raise the timing here. I'm not sure what the default timing of this quick run is, and you can not adjust it on the engine, I believe. So the only way you have to adjust the timing here is setting it in the ESC. So again, on the type of track I'm running this car, and we have here where I live, top speed around 50 to 60 kilometers per hour is enough, because you have only typically you only have one longer part on the track where you can get up to some speed. The rest of the track is usually very short, and short parts and many turns and jumps and like that. And on these longer parts, usually you don't get up to more than 50-60 kilometers per hour. So I'm gonna speed test this car, not to see how fast it is, just to see that I'm up to that around 60 kilometers per hour. Would be nice. So if it's around that, I'm just gonna keep the timing on 0 degrees. If the speed is a bit too low, maybe in the low 50 or something, I would test to raise the timing, and I will take it up to maybe 7.5 degrees here. Not being, you can take it up to 26.25, but you have 0 degrees, 3.75, 7.50, 11.25 and 50 degrees. So if I raise the timing, I'm just gonna set it first to 7.5 degrees, and then speed test the car again to see how much faster the car goes then. But I hope I can keep it on 0 degrees, because that will also keep the engine some cooler. When you raise the timing, you will get a bit higher speed, but also the engine will run a bit warmer. And you should always, when you raise the timing, you should keep track on the motor temperature. The motor temperature should not go above 80 degrees Celsius. That's somewhere in the user manual, you can read about that. So that's how it is. So let's just see if we have everything right now. 1, 2, 2, 2. Okay. 3, 5. Okay. 4, 3. Okay. 5, 3. Great. 6, 1. 7, 1. 8, 2. 9, 1. That's good. Then we just turn off the ESC. And sometimes I just like to turn it on again just to check that the values are stored. So I can just do it quick. I can just check like the, yeah, let's see here. Yes, we have the drag brake at value 2, and that's 5%, so that's good. Well, yeah. Yep, that's good. So now the ESC is programmed, and I just gonna finish off. I just have to mount this antenna somehow to this car. It was a bit tight fit there with the cables on this side, wires on this side. Maybe you could turn the motor one more that way, so you get the cables even more on this on the side there. But I think it's going to be okay. It's just a bit tight here. Some things hit the body a bit there, but I believe it's going to be okay. So I come back later when I'm finished off. Bye. Well, now it's start to look like a finished car. I got the body on the wing, on the rear, and also the wheels, yes. And the battery is in now, everything is in the car, and I checked the ride height, or the ground clearance here, and the kit setup says it should be 13 millimeter ride height in the front and the same in the rear. And I measured it, and it was a bit high in the front and a bit low in the rear. So I did just tighten the springs here a bit in the rear, and I did loose up the springs a bit in the front. So now I am at about 15 millimeters both in the front and the rear. And I think that's a good setup for me, because one of the track that we have, Calibrate tracks that we are running on, it's got many uneven spots. So I think maybe 30 millimeter could be a bit little. So I'm gonna start with 15 millimeters ground clearance. And you can see I can take off the body now. The body itself is very very light and thin, but I know this is a racer body, so they like it to have little weight. So here we can see the car now. Battery inside is a 5000 milliamps battery. Where I mounted the transponder is here, and it's on this plastic side guard. So I think that's a good spot, because then you do not have any metal under it, which they say could weaken the signal. Of course I should maybe put it in the very front of the car, because if it's a close race you have to have the transponder a bit in the front so you win the race. Maybe, I'm not sure. No, I'm not sure. Of course I'm just silly joke. I'm going to keep it there. And I have the receiver here. It's a Spectrum SR315, and of course the servo. And I have this short length or height servo. It's not the full size servo, so that gives me a bit more space here. But I think it's strong enough. And we have the fan here on the top. It was a bit tight under the body, so maybe, I'm not sure, but if this is the best location for the fan to be to cool down the engine, that's okay. If not, you could also have it in the rear and use the rear mount. And maybe the wires here should be a bit more to the right side, and you have to twist the engine with the engine mount there. But I think it's alright. And here we have the ESC and the on-off switch there. And I just use this double-sided tape to mount things. The wheels, I'm not sure what they call again. I think it's the Schumacher Messo in the rear. And it's also Schumacher, what they call staggered cut or something. Because they are cut some on the inside and the outside, so they don't grip that hard to a carpet track. The suspension looks very, very good. And they got these 13mm shocks. So they say it should take jumps and other stuff better. But it looks very good, very smooth. So I think it will stick very good to carpet track. Yeah. The next thing I'm going to do now, I just have a few things left. I have to register this transponder. That just, I go to a web page and I punch in the serial number and register it. And then I also check the camber and toe, but that looks good. Camber, the wheel should 1 degree inwards on the top, both in the front and rear. And toe, I think it's 1 degree, they go out like this, also a bit out, and it looks good. And then I of course have to check that the car is steering straight, but that when I start to drive the car. And one more important thing is to set the slipper up. All right. Now you measure this gap here. It stands in the user manual, measure this gap, and it's now set at the default, but you should tighten it a bit. So I have to do that. I can show that also, just have to finish off. And I'm also going to weight this car now, see how much weight we got. So I come back later again. Also remember to set your steering endpoints. That's how much you can go left and right. So lower that on the transmitter, so the wheels are not hitting something. Looks good. And we have this again, this arrow here pointing to the middle here. The servo looks alright. It will be interesting to see what speed we get with this setup. Again, it's the quick run 10.5 motor, and I got what was it again? Was it the 20 or 24 pinion? And quick run 120 EC. All right. I'm now gonna measure the weight of this car. Everything is in the car now, also the battery. 5000 milliamps battery. I get 1749 grams. 1749 grams. So that's with this electronics, this motor, ESC, everything I got in this car now. That's alright, I guess, but maybe a bit high if you are a serious racer. But you could switch the battery to 4000 milliamps battery and maybe drop at least 50 gram. Then you would be to about 1700 grams. And I'm not sure what the weight is of other electronics. This quick run is a bit bigger than the XR10 Pro that many are using. The motor I don't know, but maybe other brands like the Reedy or the Hobbywing XR Pro engines are a bit lighter, so I'm not sure really. Then you of course could start to switch out some parts to maybe more into carbon fiber, something like that. But you should get it down to 1600 at least. Maybe I'm wrong. Maybe I've seen some people are measuring the cars to about a bit over 1500, but that could be also the two-wheel drive car maybe. So I'm not sure what these four-wheel drive cars used to weight, but it's good enough for me. I'm just have to learn to race first. Now I'm gonna set up the slipper a bit, because it's just on stock setting now, and I will do this test where I'm locking the rear wheels, holding the car down, and give some throttle and see if I get the car to lift up in the front. It should lift up a few centimeters over the ground. That's one way to see that the slipper is set okay. So I will test that now. Come back. Yeah, I'm gonna check the slipper now. And I have the car on here, holding one rear wheel with that and the remote transmitter on the other wheel. And I give some punch on the throttle, and you should see the front lift up a few centimeters from the ground. If you're hearing this wee lead, that's the slipper that's slipping. Let's see. Yeah, you see it don't lift up really. You have a small movement, but it don't give this like that. So I have to tighten the slipper a bit. So I have not used any thread lock on this small screw yet, because I have to get the slipper set up right. Okay, so now I'm loosening this small screw here. Then I will tighten the slipper some here. You screw it more tight. Let's see. Like that maybe. So now I have to recheck again. Yeah, it's still slipping. I feel the slipper if it's very hot, but it's not hot. So I think I have to tighten it some more. Let's see if that's enough. I'm not sure how much I tighten it now. It's maybe a quarter of a turn or something like that. Let's try again. Yeah, now you see it lifts the front wheels a bit. About 1 centimeter. The slipper is not warm yet. I think I'm gonna tighten it a very little more, because I think I heard it was slipping also there. So So we'll see if that is enough. Froze it, or what they call it. Let's see now. Yeah. Yeah, you see it lifts the front wheels a bit off the ground. You see it? So I think it's all right now. The slipper is not warm. You feel it's a little bit warm, but nothing serious. So I think I'm gonna start here. So now I'm just gonna take out this little set screw, and I'm gonna add a very tiny bit of thread lock glue to it. Just to be sure that it's not unscrewing itself, but very little here. Like that. So I also have to make sure that so I have to have the thing in right position now, so the set screw is onto the right location now. Let's see. Okay. Okay. Because you have some the threads there are a bit flatter where you should have the set screw. So I try this position here now. Like that. I just give it a bit more. Not much, but just a tiny. Like that. That should be okay. Then I'll just recheck the setting again to see that it's not too loose now. Let's see. Yeah, it's lifting fine. Look at the front wheels there. Okay. Yeah, it looks great. So I think I have the slipper okay set now. So now everything is done, I feel. It's the 24-tooth Schumacher steel pinion I'm using with this 10.5 engine, hobby wing quick run, and a 120 amp quick run ESC. So I'm now going to take a speed run and test what speed I have of the car. Again, not to see that I got very high speed. I just want it to be near 60 kilometers per hour, should be alright. And if it's too low, like on the low 50 or something like that, I will maybe raise the timing in the ESC up to, was it 7.5 degrees or something, to see if I can get the car to go about 60 kilometers per hour. But also then you have to check the temperature on both the ESC and the engine. Because as I said before, on the tracks I'm running, carpet tracks, about 50 to 60 kilometers per hour maximum speed is more than enough. only on the longest straight rides you have possibility to get up to speed like 40-50 kilometers per hour. So now I think everything is done. I just have to again take the transponder and register that on me so I can get the time lapse or lapse times. And then I will check that the steering is straight. So now I'm finished, and the next video will be when I'm just doing a speed run with this car, but I have to wait till it's dry up. It's a bit rain outside, maybe later this day or tomorrow or another day. And as I said, the ride height or ground clearance, it was a bit high in the front and a bit low in the rear. So just tighten the rear springs and loose up a bit the front springs. Also check that the arms are almost flat horizontal here and the axles and same in the rear. So the setup looks good, but of course it's all in the pudding. Is that what they say? You have to test it on a track and see, and also start to tune it. It's very uneven where we are driving, so I maybe have to rise it a bit up, but now it's around 15 millimeters both in the front and the rear. So that was all, and this was a bit long video again, but now you have seen most of the build. I didn't show you when I was building like the car or all the parts or doing the exact mounting, but I just show you how it looks now. Also, again, maybe you should try to get these wires even more to the side, so you have as low as possible, because the body it's very tight onto here on this spot here where you have the motor wires here and the fan. Maybe later I'm going to look into buy another body, because this is very thin, so maybe if the body could be like 2 millimeters, 3 millimeters taller also, that would be nice for me, because I have these parts here. But it fits alright, it's just that it's a bit tight, but it fits alright. So the car is finished, ready for speed test later. Come back another day. All good. Bye bye.